That's brilliant. It's the cars bagging training all over again.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, it's just thinking about it, it's challenging ourselves to think about the problem differently. And in this
Right.
case, the problem wasn't that one team had more than the other, because that was the perception. The problem is that we thought about ourselves as one location over the other, right? And so if you get rid of the locations, which is what that was the solution, problem solved.
That's, so it makes me think a lot about, I mean, there's a ton of people, you turn on the news at any point, there's a story about, people being forced to go back to the office.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, it just seems like it's an Instagram meme at this point. So what have you encountered? I mean, that's an older story. I mean, you wrote that, it's retrospective, but like, what have you encountered recently that's where you're maybe dealing with some of this stuff? Like, people are remote, some aren't, some are like have animosity over the fact that some are remote and some aren't.
I was thinking about this. It's a good question. I was thinking about this the other day, because I don't think it's an old story. I think we're still very much in the thick of it, because
I think so.
If you take a look at the CEO from Interbrand, made that stupid hokey video about, everyone's coming back in the workplace. This isn't a negotiation. It's going to happen. You're going to like it or you're not.
Yeah.
But the what to me was, if you look at that video, if you haven't seen the video, you got to watch it, because they got some of the leadership to pitch like why this is important, right? And every one of those leaders looks like they've been, they were kept awake for 48 hours, not fed anything. They're promised like food and a cigarette or something if they'll just read this line. It really does look like to me, like looks like prisoner of war kind of stuff. It's so bad.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about, one of the points that they tried to mention is that we're better together, and when we're together, we innovate better. And it's like, unless there are some cases, I'm sure, like you get into manufacturing and
sure,
you're having to actually, tactile stuff. But when you're remote, I'll challenge anybody. I'll go toe to toe that working in the same room creates better innovation. That's bogus.
Yeah.
Being supported, given the right amount of training, support, autonomy, focus, goals, like these are the things, tools that makes it so that you're innovative, right? Giving people the idea and the space and the prompts, the permission to go be innovative and to listen to them. That's how you get innovation. Has nothing to do with how many inches are you from somebody. Zero. Yeah. But to me, the more important thing is if I'm a board member of these companies that are forcing people to return back to work because I don't know any different, right? That's what's happening, is these leaders are looking at this as a challenge to their authority.
And they're scared, right?
They're scared because they don't have any other model, or they're assholes. They're not willing to consider other models.
I immediately thought of Elon Musk.
Yeah.
When he was like, you need to be back, or I forget what his quote was, but it was pretty empathy-less, whatever his quote was.
Let's talk about that jackass for a minute, because I remember Elon, there was an interview with him where he talks about, being a leader is tough because, when you're on top, everybody just brings all of their problems to you, and all your day is just solving problems and dealing with bad people. And it's like, that's only if you don't give people the responsibility, the autonomy, the authority, but also hold them accountable for making those decisions on their own. If you set up your leadership team and if you ran a positive environment for leaders to be leaders, no one's going to bring any problems to you whatsoever, right? They're actually going to be afraid to bring problems to you because it's going to make them look incompetent that they couldn't make a decision, right? So then at that case, it's like, if they're bringing something to you, it's a pretty big problem, right? And that's just that whole mindset of like, oh, being a leader is tough. It's being tough because you're really shitty at it, right?
Well, it seems like it's almost half of that and half of just having empathy for other people. Like
Mhm.
I was looking at an article on Inc.com, and like the number, I mean, you know, the number one's obviously like flexibility and time with my family, but the number two reason for wanting to work remote was the bathroom. Like they just didn't want to share a bathroom with people they didn't know that well.
Yeah.
It just seems like it comes down to basic empathy things. And you were talking through that, and I'm like, you know what's funny? It seems like those same rules about giving someone autonomy and trust, but yet holding them accountable. Those are the same rules that we should have relationships with other people with, right?
This
It's like
is
the same.
why, well, this is why you have programs like EOS, right? Where it's people find it hard for me to say, Gene, you signed up to do this thing
Yeah.
by this time or whatever. It's not done. Like, what's going on, right? And
Mhm.
if it's, you know, let's say it's on you,
Yeah.
I got to hold you accountable. And I don't know what the
Right.
consequences are in this situation, but I mean, but there's so many people that is hard to do, right?
Yeah.
Interacting with, like, I have learned over the last couple of years how prevalent anxiety is in our
Yeah.
society.
I spend a ton of time talking to people about their anxiety.
Oh my gosh, I've known people to be anxious when I didn't feel like I was being
Right.
anxious, or I didn't suffer from that. And after having crashed pretty hard a year or so back,
Mm.
now having a newfound appreciation for this, and then it's like one of those things. Like once you've been through it, then now you can see it, and it's
Mm.
like, holy cow,
Huh.
we are a very anxious culture.
We really
And
are.
I think this is also why the dispensaries are jam packed. But you
Yeah.
know, but where I'm going with this is, I feel like those, like giving people autonomy, one, having that pressure of feeling like you need to be able to set the direction. I think that puts a lot of leaders on edge, and they won't just come forward and say,
Mm.
hey, I'm a good leader doing this, but I'm not really good at that. Right? Like this is why you bring people on your team. But then I think across the board, universal is, I have coached leaders who have done everything short of selling their home so that they don't have to confront somebody about a
Mm.
thing that they're not doing
Yeah.
well,
Right.
right? Like it is insane to me how much people will create more work and create more stress, create more
Yeah.
anxiety, create more stuff, so they don't have to hold somebody accountable.